Once upon a time, there was a boy named Tim who loved comic books. His favorite was about a superhero called Comet Man. Tim would spend hours reading about Comet Man's adventures, dreaming of having his own superpowers. But in real life, Tim was shy and often bullied at school. He felt like he didn't fit in and wished he could be as brave as Comet Man. One night, as Tim was reading his Comet Man comic book before bed, he started to feel sleepy. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, something amazing had happened. The comic book in his hands was glowing. Tim rubbed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things. But no, the glow was real, and from the pages, a figure was emerging. It was Comet Man himself. He looked just like in the comic book, with his green suit and yellow cape. Comet Man. "Hello, Tim. I've come to visit you." "Tim, is this real? Are you really Comet Man?" Comet Man. "Yes, Tim. I'm here because I need your help." "Tim, my help? But I'm just a kid. What can I do?" Comet Man. "In my world, there's a great danger. A villain named Professor Peril is threatening to destroy everything. But there's a prophecy that says only a child with a pure heart and a vivid imagination can stop him. That child is you, Tim." "Tim? Me? But I don't have any superpowers." Comet Man. "You have something more powerful than any superpower. Your belief in yourself and your imagination. Together, we can save my world." Tim was scared, but also excited. He agreed to help Comet Man. They started their journey by traveling through a portal that Comet Man had created. The portal took them to different places in Comet Man's world. First, they went to the jungle of fear, where Tim had to face his greatest fears. In the jungle, Tim saw his bullies from school, but they were much bigger and more intimidating. He was terrified. Comet Man. "Remember, Tim, fear is just in your mind. You can overcome it." "Tim, I don't know if I can." Comet Man. "Think about all the times you've imagined yourself being brave like me. You can do it." Tim closed his eyes and imagined himself as Comet Man, fighting the bullies. When he opened his eyes, the bullies were gone. "Tim, I did it. I did it." Tim wasn't scared anymore. Comet Man. "That's the power of imagination, Tim." Next, they went to the Mountain of Doubt, where Tim had to climb to the top to retrieve a special gem. The climb was tough, and Tim started to doubt himself. "Tim, I can't do this." In the jungle, Tim saw his bullies from school, but they were much bigger and more intimidating. He was terrified. Comet Man. "Remember, Tim, fear is just in your mind. You can overcome it." Tim. "I don't know if I can." Comet Man. "Think about all the times you've imagined yourself being brave like me. You can do it." Tim closed his eyes and imagined himself as Comet Man, fighting the bullies. When he opened his eyes, the bullies were gone. Tim. "I did it. I wasn't scared anymore." Comet Man. "That's the power of imagination, Tim." Next, they went to the Mountain of Doubt, where Tim had to climb to the top to retrieve a special gem. Tim. "I can't do this. I'm not strong enough." Comet Man. "Yes, you are, Tim. You're stronger than you think. Don't give up." With Comet Man's encouragement, Tim kept climbing and finally reached the top. "Tim, I did it. I got the gem." Comet Man. "Great job, Tim." Finally, they reached the lair of Professor Peril. Professor Peril. "So, you've come to stop me, have you? You and this puny little child." Comet Man. "We're not afraid of you, Professor Peril." Professor Peril. "We'll see about that." A battle began between Comet Man and Professor Peril. It was intense, with Comet Man using his superpowers to fight Professor Peril's minions. But Professor Peril was too strong, and Comet Man was getting tired. Comet Man said, "Tim, I need your help. Use the gem you got from the mountain." Tim was scared and asked how. "Hold it up and believe in yourself," replied Comet Man. "Your imagination will do the rest." Tim held up the gem and concentrated. Suddenly, the gem glowed, and a beam of light shot out, hitting Professor Peril. Professor Peril. "Oh, no. What's happening?" Professor Peril started to shrink and then disappeared. Comet Man. "You did it, Tim. You did it. You saved my world." Tim. "Really? I I did, but I didn't do anything special. Comet Man, you believed in yourself, and that's the most powerful thing of all. As they celebrated, Comet Man told Tim it was time for him to go back to his world. Tim, but I don't want to leave. I've had so much fun here, said Tim. I know. Tim, but your place is in your world, replied Comet Man. Remember, you can always come back here in your imagination. With that, Comet Man sent Tim back through the portal. Tim woke up from the dream with all his fears and doubts gone. Tim opened his eyes and found himself in his bed. It was morning, and the comic book was still there, but it wasn't glowing anymore. Was it all a dream? Tim wondered, but he felt different. He felt braver and more confident. That day at school, when the bullies tried to pick on him, Tim stood up to them. Tim, leave me alone. I'm not afraid of you. Narrator. The bullies were surprised and backed off. From that day on, Tim was no longer shy. He made new friends and was happy. And every night before bed, he would read his Comet Man comic book, remembering his adventure and the lesson he learned, that he had the power within him all along. Today we learned that imagination is a powerful tool that can help us overcome our fears and build confidence. We all can use our imagination and overcome our fears and be victorious in all fields.